I thought paying for my stepdaughter's wedding would finally bring our blended family together. Instead, I ended up sitting through a ceremony where my own children weren't even welcome. Hi, I'm Emily. I never imagined I'd be the kind of person to share my private heartbreak with strangers on the internet, but the weight of this betrayal is too much to carry alone. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was proving my love, not just to my husband's daughter, but to the entire family we'd built together. Instead, I walked away from that day questioning everything: my marriage, my role as a stepmother, and whether kindness was ever worth it when it could be repaid with such cold cruelty. When I married my husband, Mark, 6 years ago, I knew his daughter, Jessica, was part of the package. She was 20 at the time, independent, and already living on her own. Mark had been a single father for years after losing Jessica's mother to cancer when Jessica was just a teenager. By the time I came into their lives, Jessica had already established herself as a strong-willed, fiercely independent young woman. I admired her for it. Honestly, I looked up to her in some ways. She was confident, articulate, and smart, with an air of maturity that made her seem older than her years. When I met her, I was newly divorced with 2 young kids of my own, Aiden, who was 6, and Chloe, who was 4. I was terrified of how Jessica would react to me, the new woman in her father's life. But she was polite, even warm, at first. She'd smile and ask about the kids, occasionally offering to babysit so Mark and I could go out. I thought, wow, this is going to work. This blended family thing isn't so bad after all. Of course, I quickly realized Jessica's politeness wasn't warmth, it was distance. She was cordial but guarded, and while she tolerated me, I could tell she resented the changes I brought into her father's life. She didn't live with us, so there weren't daily clashes, but she never went out of her way to bond with my kids. Still, I didn't push. I figured, she's young, she's lost her mom, she just needs time. Mark assured me I was doing great. Jess likes you, babe, he'd say, brushing off my insecurities. She's just not the overly affectionate type. Give her time. I believed him. I always believed him. Fast forward a few years, and Jessica met Ryan. They'd been dating for a while when Mark got a call one evening. Jessica was engaged. We were thrilled for her. I'll never forget the way Mark's face lit up as he hung up the phone. She's getting married, he said, hugging me tightly. Jessica invited us over the next weekend to celebrate. She and Ryan seemed perfect together. He was polite, attentive, and clearly adored her. Jessica showed off her ring, and we toasted to their future. That night, as Jessica walked us out, she gave me a hug. It was brief, a little awkward, but I held on to it because it felt like progress. I wanted to be involved. Not in an overbearing, mother of the bride way, but in a supportive, I'm here for you way. I offered to help with anything she needed: venue research, dress shopping, invitations. Jessica smiled politely and said, "Thanks, Emily, I'll let you know." I told Mark, I'd really love to help her plan. Maybe this is our chance to get closer. He nodded. That's a great idea. I'll mention it to her. A few weeks later, Jessica invited me to lunch, just the 2 of us. I was surprised but thrilled. Over salads at a little cafe, she nervously brought up her concerns about the cost of the wedding. "We really want this to be special," she said, "but I'm worried about the budget. Ryan and I are saving, but it's going to be tight." I felt a rush of maternal instinct. Here was my stepdaughter, confiding in me, trusting me. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Jess, don't worry about that. Mark and I want to help. We'd be honored to cover the wedding costs." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Of course. You deserve your dream wedding." Jessica teared up and hugged me right there in the cafe. That hug felt real, genuine. For the first time in years, I felt like we'd broken through a wall. From that moment on, I threw myself into wedding planning like it was my full-time job. I spent hours researching venues, catering options, photographers, florists, everything. Jessica started calling me almost daily to discuss details. She even invited me to go dress shopping with her, which I considered a huge honor. I watched her try on gown after gown, and when she finally stepped out in the one, tears welled up in my eyes. She looked breathtaking. "You're stunning," I whispered. "Your mom would be so proud." Jessica hugged me tightly, and for the first time, I felt like I'd earned my place in her life. I wasn't just Mark's wife, I was part of her family. We spared no expense. The venue was a gorgeous countryside estate. The florist designed elaborate arrangements. The photographer was one of the best in the area. By the time we were done, Mark and I had spent nearly $40,000. But I didn't care. I thought, this is worth it. This is what family is about. It started with a casual conversation one evening. Jessica had come over to finalize some details, and I asked, so where are Aiden and Chloe going to sit? Should we put them with the other kids? Jessica froze, her pen hovering over the seating chart. Oh, actually, Emily, I wasn't planning on having kids at the wedding. I laughed, thinking she was joking. Oh, that's fine for the ceremony, but they'll be at the reception, right? She set the pen down and looked at me seriously. No. I mean, they're not invited. The room went silent. I felt like I'd been slapped. What do you mean they're not invited? They're your siblings. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. They're not really my siblings, Emily. And I want an adult-only vibe. No kids. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal? These were my children. Her father's children. We'd spent thousands of dollars to make her dreams come true, and she couldn't even make space for Aiden and Chloe to attend? I stared at her in disbelief. Jessica, do you understand how hurtful that is? They love you. They were so excited to see you get married. She shrugged, avoiding eye contact. I'm sorry. But this is my wedding. I don't want kids there. Mark, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. Jess, come on. They're family. Dad, she snapped, this is what I want. Please respect it. I walked out of the room before I said something I'd regret. Later that night, Mark and I had one of the biggest fights of our marriage. I was furious that he wasn't demanding Jessica include the kids. She's being ridiculous. I shouted. We're paying for everything, and she's treating my kids like they're nothing. Mark rubbed his temples. I know, Emily. I don't agree with her, but she's an adult. It's her wedding. I can't force her. You could, I snapped. You could tell her she's being cruel. You could tell her we won't pay for a wedding that excludes half our family. He sighed. Please, don't make me choose between you and her. That broke me. So I'm just supposed to swallow this? Let my kids be excluded from a wedding I'm paying for? Mark pulled me into a hug, but I didn't hug him back. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake trying so hard to be a part of Jessica's life. The day of the wedding arrived, and it was every bit as beautiful as Jessica had imagined. The venue was stunning, the flowers were perfect, the guests were dressed to the nines. But I couldn't shake the emptiness in my heart. My kids were at home with a babysitter, confused and hurt about why they couldn't come. I plastered on a smile, helped Jessica get ready, and played the role of the supportive stepmom. But inside, I was seething. As Jessica walked down the aisle, radiant and glowing, I clapped along with everyone else. But I couldn't stop thinking about the two little faces missing from that moment. During the reception, I excused myself to the bathroom and cried. All that money, all that effort, all that love, and my kids weren't even considered part of the family. When Jessica and Ryan left for their honeymoon, I hugged them goodbye, but something inside me had shifted. The bond one thought we'd built felt shattered. That night, when we got home, Aiden and Chloe ran to me, asking, how was the wedding? Did Jess look like a princess? I smiled through my tears and said, she was beautiful. But my heart broke knowing they'd been deliberately excluded from that memory. The days after the wedding were eerily quiet. Jessica and Ryan jetted off on their honeymoon, and Mark went back to work as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I was left in a fog of resentment. I tried to act normal around Aiden and Chloe, but every time I saw their little faces light up when they asked about the wedding, guilt stabbed through me. I felt like I'd failed them. I'd let them believe they were part of this family, only for Jessica to slam the door in their faces. Mark and I barely spoke. When we did, it was about logistics, dinner plans, who was picking up the kids from school, not about the elephant in the room. He was acting like this wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was huge. It wasn't just about one day. It was about the blatant message Jessica sent, my dad's new family doesn't count. By the end of the week, I couldn't take the silence anymore. One evening, after tucking the kids into bed, I cornered Mark in the kitchen. Are we going to talk about this? I demanded. He sighed, leaning against the counter. Talk about what? I threw my hands up. Jessica excluding the kids. The fact that we spent 40 grand on a wedding where our children weren't even welcome. The fact that I feel like an idiot for even trying to have a relationship with her. Mark rubbed his face. Emily, I get it. You're upset. But it's over now. What good does it do to keep rehashing it? I stared at him in disbelief. Over? That's your takeaway? That it's over? Mark, this isn't just about a wedding. This is about how your daughter sees this family. She doesn't see me as a stepmom. She doesn't see Aiden and Chloe as siblings. She doesn't see us at all. He looked exhausted. She lost her mom, Em. You can't expect her to just accept. Don't you dare, I snapped, my voice shaking. Don't you dare use her mom's death as an excuse to treat my kids like they don't exist. I bent over backward for Jessica for years, Mark. Years. And this is what I get? Mark didn't respond. He just stood there, silent. And that silence was worse than any argument. For the next month, Mark and I lived like strangers. We were polite around the kids but distant. I was angry at him for not standing up for our family, and he was angry at me for making this a bigger deal than it needed to be. The resentment ate away at me. Every time I saw a wedding photo on social media, my stomach churned. Jessica had posted a beautiful shot of her and Ryan kissing under the floral arch I'd paid for, captioned with, "Best day of my life, surrounded by everyone who matters most." Everyone who matters most. Except my kids. Except me, apparently. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat alone scrolling through my phone. Jessica had tagged Ryan's parents, her bridesmaids, even distant cousins I'd never met. I wasn't tagged in a single post. Not one. I'd written the checks, planned every detail, and yet I was invisible. I cried myself to sleep that night. Not just because of Jessica, but because of Mark. He hadn't defended me, hadn't defended our children. I started to wonder if I'd married a man who would always put his daughter first, no matter what. 2 weeks after Jessica returned from her honeymoon, she invited us over for dinner. I didn't want to go, but Mark insisted. "We need to move forward," he said. "She's trying to include us." I bit back my bitterness and agreed. When we arrived, Jessica greeted us with a smile, as if nothing had happened. She hugged Mark and offered me a polite, "Hi, Emily." The evening was awkward. Jessica and Ryan chatted about their honeymoon while Mark laughed along. I stayed quiet, seething inside. Finally, Jessica said, "So, Emily, did you like the photos I sent?" I blinked at her. "What photos?" She frowned. "Oh. I must have forgotten to send them. Sorry." Something in me snapped. "You forgot to send me the photos of the wedding I paid for? That's impressive." Jessica's smile faltered. "Emily." "No," I said, my voice rising. "I need to say this. Jessica, do you have any idea how hurtful it was to exclude Aiden and Chloe? They look up to you. They wanted to be there. And you didn't even care." Jessica's eyes hardened. "Emily, it wasn't personal. It was my wedding. I didn't want kids there." I scoffed. "Not even your siblings? Not even your father's children?" "They're not my siblings," she snapped. "They're your kids. Not mine." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Mark tried to intervene. "Jess, come on, that's not fair." "No, Dad," she said, glaring at me. "She's not my mom. Those kids aren't my siblings. I'm sorry if that hurts, but it's the truth." I stood up, shaking. "You're right, Jessica. I'm not your mom. But I sure as hell acted like one when I wrote those checks." Her face flushed red. "No one asked you to pay for it." I grabbed my purse and walked out, slamming the door behind me. The drive home was silent. Mark gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw clenched. "Do you see now?" I finally said, my voice trembling. "Do you see how she feels about me? About our kids? She doesn't care, Mark. She never has." Mark didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "She's my daughter, Emily. I can't just cut her off." "I'm not asking you to cut her off," I said bitterly. "I'm asking you to stop sacrificing us to protect her feelings." We argued late into the night. He accused me of being too harsh on Jessica. I accused him of being a coward. By the time we went to bed, I felt more alone than ever. A few days later, Aiden came home from school with tears in his eyes. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked, kneeling down to hug him. He sniffled. Some kids were talking about weddings. I told them my sister just got married, but then I remembered. I didn't go. His little face crumpled. "Why didn't you want me there, Mommy? Did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered. I pulled him into my arms, holding him as he cried. "No, sweetie," I whispered, fighting back tears of my own. "You didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. This wasn't your fault." That night, after putting him to bed, I sat in the kitchen and sobbed. Seeing my son hurt because of Jessica's selfishness was the breaking point. When Mark came home, I didn't waste time. "I can't do this anymore," I said. I can't keep pretending this is okay. He looked weary. Emily. No, I interrupted. You need to make a choice. Either you start setting boundaries with Jessica, or this marriage won't survive. I will not let my children grow up feeling unwanted in their own family. Mark stared at me, stunned. You're asking me to choose between my wife and my daughter? I'm asking you to choose between doing what's easy and doing what's right, I said firmly. We stood there in silence for a long time. Finally, Mark nodded. I'll talk to her. A week later, Mark went to see Jessica. I stayed home, pacing the living room, my stomach in knots. When he came back, his face was pale. Well? I asked. He sighed. She's furious. She thinks you're trying to turn me against her. I felt tears prick my eyes. And what did you say? I told her she hurt you. That she hurt the kids. That I won't tolerate her disrespect anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Thank you, I whispered. Mark pulled me into his arms. I love you, Emily. I love our kids. I don't know how to fix this. We start by protecting our family, I said softly. Jessica didn't speak to us for weeks after Mark's talk with her. She unfollowed me on social media, ignored Mark's texts, and even skipped our usual family dinners. Ryan occasionally sent Mark polite updates, but Jessica herself had gone completely cold. At first, I was angry. How dare she act like we were the problem after everything we'd done for her? But over time, my anger turned into exhaustion. I was tired of the constant tension. Tired of tiptoeing around feelings that were never reciprocated. Mark was heartbroken. He missed his daughter. I could see it in the way he'd stare at his phone, hoping for a text. I wanted to comfort him, but I couldn't ignore the way she had hurt our family. One night, I found him sitting on the edge of our bed, scrolling through old photos of Jessica as a child. I feel like I've lost her, he whispered. I sat down beside him, resting my head on his shoulder. You didn't lose her, I said softly. She's just choosing who she wants to be. And right now, that person doesn't include us. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was the truth. 2 months later, just as I was starting to accept the distance, my phone rang. It was Jessica. My heart pounded as I answered. Hello? Emily, she said flatly. We need to talk. I braced myself. About what? There was a long pause before she finally said, I think I owe you an apology. Those were the last words I expected to hear. We met at a quiet coffee shop the next day. Jessica looked nervous, fidgeting with her sleeve as she sat across from me. Thanks for coming, she said softly. I crossed my arms. What's this about, Jessica? She took a deep breath. I know I hurt you. And the kids. I wasn't thinking about anyone but myself, and that was wrong. I blinked in surprise. That's unexpected. Jessica looked down at her hands. After the wedding, Ryan and I went to visit his family. His niece asked why she wasn't invited to the wedding, and I didn't know what to say. She looked so sad. And then I thought about Aiden and Chloe, and how they must have felt. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry, Emily. I was selfish. Part of me wanted to cling to my anger, but seeing her genuinely remorseful softened something in me. You really hurt them, Jess. They love you. They look up to you. I know, she whispered. I want to fix it. I want them to know I care. Jessica came over the next weekend, bearing gifts for Aiden and Chloe. She knelt down to their level, tears in her eyes as she apologized. I'm so sorry I didn't invite you to the wedding, she said. That was a terrible decision. Can you forgive me? Aiden, ever the sweet boy, nodded and hugged her. Chloe followed suit, smiling shyly. Watching them forgive her so easily broke me in a way I didn't expect. Children's hearts are so pure, they don't hold grudges the way adults do. Later, Jessica pulled me aside. I know I can't undo what I did. But I want to make it right. I want to be a better sister to them. And a better daughter to you. I felt tears sting my eyes. Thank you, Jess. That means a lot. Just when I thought things were finally starting to heal, life threw another curveball. A week later, Jessica called me again. This time, her voice was shaking. Emily. I'm pregnant. My jaw dropped. What? Jess, that's amazing. She started crying. I'm scared. I don't know if I'll be a good mom. After everything I did, what if I mess this up too? I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. I remembered being pregnant with Aiden, terrified I'd ruin everything. You're going to be a wonderful mom, I said gently. And you won't have to do it alone. We're here for you. That moment changed everything. For the first time, Jessica saw me not as a threat or a stepmother to resent, but as someone who understood her fears. Over the next few months, Jessica softened. She started visiting more, calling me for advice about her pregnancy, and even inviting Aiden and Chloe to feel the baby kick. Watching them bond filled me with hope. One evening, Jessica came over for dinner. After the kids went to bed, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. I used to hate you, she admitted. I thought you were trying to replace my mom. I resented you for marrying Dad. But you've done nothing but love me. You didn't have to pay for that wedding. You didn't have to care. But you did. And I treated you horribly. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I wasn't trying to replace your mom, Jess. I just wanted to be part of your life. I wanted us to be a family. She smiled through her tears. We are. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to see it. Jessica's baby shower was a turning point. She insisted Aiden and Chloe be the guests of honor, calling them her favorite aunt and uncle. The kids were over the moon. Mark beamed as he watched all of us laughing together. Later that night, he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You saved this family, Emily. I don't know how you stayed so patient." I smiled, resting my head against his chest. Because I love them. All of them. When Jessica gave birth to a healthy baby girl, she asked me to be in the delivery room. Holding that tiny baby in my arms, I felt all the pain of the past year melt away. Jessica looked at me with tears in her eyes. I want her to grow up knowing how lucky she is to have you as her grandma. I burst into tears. I love you, Jess. For the first time, she hugged me back without hesitation. Looking back now, I realize how close we came to losing everything, our marriage, our family, our bond. But sometimes pain forces growth. Jessica and I had to break before we could rebuild. I don't regret paying for that wedding anymore. It was a turning point, even if it came at a cost. Now, when I see Aiden and Chloe playing with their niece, laughing with Jessica, I know it was worth it. We are a family. Not a perfect one, but a real one. And that's all I ever wanted. Belle, thanks for watching this story. Speech Balloon, what would you have done in Emily's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thumbs up like this video if you believe love and patience can heal family rifts. Loudspeaker, subscribe for more real-life drama stories every week.